let's talk about the different architectures that are out there. Now, we're speaking about the operating system design and how it interacts with the particular services that are offered by the vendor. So first we'll talk about iPhones. Now, iPhones and iTouch run the same operating system, and it has the four same basic layers. The only difference between the two is one's got a cell operations in it and the other one doesn't. It doesn't have the cell phone data in the iTouch. It's got the core operating system, and then on top of that you've got your services. This is where the two would actually differ. So the iPhone has the media services in it to communicate over the cellular network. Then the media that's installed on it, and then finally Cocoa Touch, which allows us to actually do the touch screen. Windows CE architecture is a little bit different. It has the hardware, the operating system, the application. CE is a little bit, well, it's just as closely tied to the device, but it's a little bit more of an open platform because you can put it on many different Windows devices. It has 4 types of memory in it, which is very different than the way that the iPhone is set up from a physical standpoint. It has RAM, expansion RAM, ROM, and persistent storage. Now, this is important for us because we need to realize that those are 4 different places that we're going to try and pull evidence from. So you have to know your development of the physical platform. When we talk about the architecture of the Linux OS, we're really talking about Android. Anytime that you see any discussion on mobile phones and they say Linux or Android, well, we're talking about that free and open source platform. Android is always the Linux operating system. There's a problem with mobile forensics. It's very different than what we're used to, but let's think about what this mobile device does. If you're walking along the street and you pop this thing up and you say, I would like to see a map of where I am and where I'm going and show me a route. At that moment in time, there was one update that went on. But as you're walking down the street or driving down the street, they're continually sending signals up and down to that phone so that you can actually track your position on the street. That means that this is continually taking updates when we see it there in user mode. But separate us from it and don't do the maps. That kind of activity is continually going on this phone. So our rule when it comes to evidence is what? What's our primary rule? Don't change the evidence. When it gets into your possession, pull your data off of it and don't change the evidence. Well, I can't help it. I can't stop. Yes, you can. You can stop your phone from updating, and we talked about this previously. Use a Faraday cage to shield those signals, those emanations going from or coming to your phone. That limits the amount of change that is possible at that moment in time. Now, theoretically, the operating system is updating itself. It will say and it will signal inside of itself that, hey, I tried to do an update at this time, it didn't work. I tried to do an update at this time in the future, and it didn't work, and so on. But that updating inside of the phone is a very limited amount of change to this particular phone. So you want a Faraday cage or a Faraday bag. In this case, when you're doing mobile phone forensics, the thing that you need on the scene immediately when seizing that device is an enclosure that will stop the signaling from transmitting back and forth. There are some other problems with that, and we'll get to those in a little bit. Remember, the connections on these things are all different. Whatever this connector is on the bottom of here is different than the connector for your phone or for their phone. There's thousands and thousands of connectors, so that's going to be difficult for us. And then we have to deal with write blocking on the phone. It's a different methodology for doing the write blocking on a particular phone. I have to say, I've been jumping up and down and hollering and screaming throughout these presentations of saying, don't use software write blockers. Right now, well, at this moment in time, probably tomorrow this will change, there aren't any hardware write blockers for phones, so what we do is we use a software tool. They're coming pretty soon, I'm sure. And then it's also difficult to image the evidence. How do you pull the data off of this phone in a reasonable fashion? You buy custom tools, by the way. And we're going to see at the end those custom tools. So let's go through the process of mobile forensics. Now, this is just like the other process that we've talked about for regular forensics, but we're going to make slight adjustments. In the next section, we're going to go over all 8 of these steps and say, and for mobile, we do this. So that's what we'll do next.